I'm Mark Golub, and in the news, another controversy swirling around the figure of Donald Trump, who of course is currently leading the Republican field in quest of the Republican nomination. And there's a suggestion that Mr. Trump gave the Nazi salute and received the Nazi salute from his supporters. Now, I want to say at the outset, what you're about to hear is strictly my own editorial opinion. You have every right to disagree with me on what I'm about to say, and if you do, I hope you send in your comments, which I will read on the air. But I am very, very disappointed and embarrassed as a member of the Jewish media for the way in which Jews have been willing to equate Donald Trump's raising his hand in a pledge and asking his audience to raise their hands in a pledge with Adolf Hitler's Nazi salute and the salute given him by hordes of Nazis at his rallies. From my perspective, for many reasons, this charge against Mr. Trump is outrageous demagoguery by the American media, and it is, from my perspective, wholly irresponsible for credible Jewish news sources to give any credence to this charge. Sadly, Jewish institutions and individuals for whom I have the utmost regard, and I'm a real fan of their work, it's sad that they permitted their anti-Trump feelings, which they have every right to have, to cloud their objectivity and their Jewish conscience. And I'm talking about the Times of Israel. I'm talking about the editor-in-chief of the Jewish Forward, Jane Eisner, who appeared on MSNBC. And I'm talking about the past national director of the ADL, Abe Foxman, who's a personal friend and a person I believe has made and continues to make a courageous and invaluable contribution to Jewish life worldwide. But there's no justification for equating what Donald Trump did at a rally to what Adolf Hitler and the Nazis did at Nazi rallies. And you know, we've seen how people always like to make that comparison, comparing someone they're against to Adolf Hitler. At what point we've heard it with Barack Obama, he's a Nazi. All the time, the Palestinian media tries to equate Israel with Nazis. It's never justified, it's never appropriate, and we always rail against it when the spectrum of comparing someone today to Adolf Hitler. And no less is true in this case. To suggest that Donald Trump mimicked Adolf Hitler is to totally undermine and to trivialize the horrific evil that Adolf Hitler was, what he did to the Jews, and what Nazi Germany did to Jews and to humanity. Now, I want to show you Adolf Hitler to remind you of what he looked like and sounded like and felt like when he spoke and did the Heil Hitler salute. I want to play this for you. This is Adolf Hitler at a Hitler rally and his raising his arm. Sloan, let's see it. I don't know if it's true for you. For me, that image is seared in my memory. And the Nazi salute is a hand outraised, whether it's spread or not, swung or not. That's the Nazi salute. Now, I want you to watch Donald Trump at his rally. You decide if he did anything remotely resembling Adolf Hitler, or whether his audience did anything remotely resembling what we've seen in pictures of a Nazi audience. Here is the Donald Trump rally.
Vote. You got it. Okay, wait. Let's do a pledge. Everybody here, who likes me in this room? Okay. I've never done this before. Can I have a pledge, a swearing? Raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear that I, no matter how I feel, no matter what the conditions, if there's hurricanes or whatever, that's good enough, will vote on or before the 12th for Donald J. Trump for president. Thank you. Now I know. Don't forget, you all raised your hand, you swore. Bad things happen if you don't live up to what you just did. No, I really appreciate it. I mean, we're having an amazing period. It's an amazing period. You know, they used to call this the silent majority, but it wasn't nearly as big like this. They used to call it the silent majority, and I was sort of using that name, and some people didn't like that name.
Let's cut the sound also, yeah. Was there anything, even remotely, in any way Hitler-esque or Nazi-like in Donald Trump's rally? Hitler, sinister, threatening, and arm out. Donald Trump, obviously having fun. It occurred to him on the spot. By the way, that's Donald Trump, on the spot. It's one of the things that appeals to his supporters. There's nothing threatening about it. The arm wasn't up, out. It was a pledge. Somebody who also ridiculed the comment that Donald Trump was Hitler-esque pointed out that if you went to a meeting, not a meeting, a ceremony where new Americans were being sworn in, they would do exactly the same. We've seen it 1,000 times on American television when in a program someone goes to the stand and is asked to raise his right hand and pledge that he's going to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Donald Trump raised his hand. His supporters raised their hand. There was nothing Nazi about it. By the way, a few moments later, Donald Trump actually says, again in a kidding, I was only kidding. You can change your mind and vote for someone else. I just think it should be, you should be voting for me. On a recent Shabbat, I participated in something called Shabbat Across America. I did it in my hometown of Stamford, Connecticut. All the congregations of every movement came together in one spot to celebrate Friday night Shabbat together. It was marvelous. And we're on in Stamford. If there's anybody watching now who was part of that event, Mazal Tov, you did a fabulous job. And it was a wonderful night of community. And again, this is happening in various communities all across America. And there's a service. There are two services. For those who wanted what was called a progressive service, didn't want to be part of an Orthodox service, wanted to sit with their husband or wife together, there was an egalitarian service, and there was also an Orthodox service. And I'm one of the rabbis leading the progressive egalitarian service. And one of the things I was honored to do was read a prayer for the state of Israel. And before I read the prayer, I said to the room, how many people here have been to Israel? Would you raise your hand with me? Almost the entire room. It was staggering to see how many people simply raised their hand as people at Donald Trump's rally was asked to raise their hand. No one would have said to me, Mark, why did you do a Nazi salute? Why did the room full of Jews return a Nazi salute? It is absolutely ludicrous. And the media is hypocritical and dishonest to suggest, to even hint that Donald Trump was being a Nazi. It's outrageous. And it's outrageous for Jews to pile on, to agree. By the way, we invited Jane Eisner and Abe Foxman to respond. Jane was unable to get back to us yet. Abe Foxman said he would talk to us, but the times didn't work out where we could be on together. So maybe we'll have Abe on at another time, maybe Jane on at another time. By the way, when it comes to a survivor, I believe a survivor always gets a pass. You know, Abe Foxman is a survivor. He was saved by his Catholic nanny during the Shoah. And my own sense is, you know, if Abe Foxman sees in anything something that resembles Hitler, he has the right to it, and I'm not critical. I think he's wrong, but I'm not critical. And again, I hope Jane might come on at some later time if she wants to argue the position she took on MSNBC. And maybe even we'll speak to somebody from the Times of Israel, where I have editorials in the Times of Israel. I think David Horowitz does a fabulous job. We have correspondence on all the time from the Times of Israel. I don't understand why they would equate what Donald Trump did with his pledge, which was an spur-of-the-moment, off-the-cuff joke, to Adolf Hitler. And by the way, there are valid reasons to be against Donald Trump. You might be against his policies. You might disagree with him on the wall, illegal immigration. You might disagree with him on his trade policies vis-a-vis foreign countries. You might feel his proposed ban on Muslims coming to America was simply out of place, out of character, un-American. You can agree with his lack of specificity. Though I have to say, if you're honestly watching this campaign, Democrat and Republican, there are many candidates who propose policies without specifics, or which most Americans know can never be implemented, will never be implemented. You can disagree with him on David Duke, and he's saying, I don't know who David Duke was. You can disagree with him on style, on what seems to be at time a pretty short temper. Though one should notice Trump only strikes back. He does not tend to strike first. But you can think he's boorish, and you can feel he does not have the correct temperament or instinct, that he's not presidential. Again, this is a critique I often hear leveled at a number of the candidates, some of whom have dropped out. But you can say he's not presidential. All these are substantive reasons to be against Donald Trump. They're not ad hominem. Many Jews were angered by the ad hominem comments thrown at Barack Obama. Others were upset by the ad hominem comments hurled at George Bush. Well, these are no less inappropriate. They should be no less acceptable because they're hurled at Donald Trump. And I'll say this again. This Nazi slur should be offensive to the American people, and especially offensive to American Jews, to any of us who appreciate the breadth of the evil which Hitler wrote about, planned for, and implemented. To even suggest that Donald Trump gave the Nazi salute is to do insult to the sacrifice and the memory of the 6 million. I know many Jews are aghast at the thought of a Trump presidency. I'm also astonished by how many Jews tell me they're going to vote for Donald Trump. Good, intelligent, thoughtful Jews. It's because Trump has tapped into the profound anger and disgust of the American people. The disgust the American people have with the political establishment, the political elite, Republican and Democrat. Americans feel politicians lie every election cycle. And Donald Trump is clearly an outsider who unabashedly says he's used the system. He knows the system, how it works. And he knows, therefore, what's wrong with it. And he's self-funding. And that, therefore, he will at least be less beholden to lobbyists and corporate interests, which most Americans understand control policy in our country. How many times have you heard there's no real difference between Republicans and Democrats? They're all controlled by the same special interests. So that, yes, there's a nuance to each party, but that larger American policy never changes. Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump say so many of the same things in different ways, in different styles, but so many of the same things. They both criticize the very wealthy for controlling the political process and for American policy. And they both criticize America's trade agreements and want to bring jobs back to America. Are they right? Can Bernie Sanders ever implement what he promises? Can Hillary Clinton ever implement what she promises? Is it remotely possible that Donald Trump could affect some change that would be good for the American political process in this country? And that's what this election is all about. What we, the American people, believe any candidate can do if that candidate is elected to public office. What this election is not about is media lies, media hypocrisy, and media bias to the point of thinking it should decide for us who we should vote for, that it has the responsibility to influence voters for or against a specific candidate. And in this instance, the media has simply ganged up on Donald Trump in a way that's simply dishonest and unfair. Yes, by the way, Donald Trump gets a lot of play in the media. Incidentally, he gets a play everywhere he goes. If the media is supposed to cover events, then when Donald Trump gets 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, 30,000 people at a political rally of his, and other candidates are getting 250, maybe 1,000, that's a real story. And if it turns out, by the way, that Americans tune in to see Donald Trump, and that drives ratings, we live in a capitalist system. The media has every right to do that. But then to say as if the media has done something hypocritical by showing us Donald Trump, or that the other candidates don't get enough time, well, I personally believe all candidates should get equal time in the American media, that we should take money out of it. But at the moment, that's not going to happen. And I feel bad for the John Kasichs of this world who simply don't get play. But there are those in the Jewish community who have joined in the media dishonesty. At the same time, by the way, you should know that there are many, many Jews, many survivors, who are deeply offended and hurt by the comparison of Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler. And all of us should be more sensitive to their perspective. And all of us should reject media bias, especially when it comes in such a dishonest form and takes over the suggestion that Donald Trump gave a Nazi salute when obviously he did not. And that's my opinion. Again, if you disagree with me, please be in touch with me, and I will read your comments on JBS. Please email me, write me, post on our Facebook page, or tweet me. I will be most happy to receive any of your comments. Until the next time, I'm Mark Golub. Be well, my friends.